And I did want to take a moment to introduce Thor. He is the manager of system reliability planning for Toronto Hydro, and he's got more than 20 years in electric distribution, including Iceland State Electricity. And his current responsibilities include planning and grid modernization and reliability analysis and more. And he's the co-founder of this health index idea, this methodology for assessing the condition of assets. Thor, thank you for sharing your lessons learned with your colleagues from other utilities, and welcome.
Hello, and thank you for coming and listening to our webinar. I am talking about a little bit from a Toronto Hydro perspective. Toronto Hydro is within the city of Toronto. It's about 2.5 million people that we serve. Similarly as to Hydro One, we have an aging infrastructure. It's a utility that's been for the last 100 years, and a lot of reliability problems that we're tackling and working on. So very capital, high intensity, and a lot of analytics to making sure that we are doing the right investments. Bruno ended on a roadmap, so I'll start on a roadmap, and that's probably where the comparison ends. It's hard to grab the ball like that from Bruno. He had a very good presentation, but I'll say at least our roadmap is more colorful. But anyways, leave the comparison at that. Really what I wanted to discuss is a little bit from a different approach, and as is shown here in our in this roadmap. And it's really the different tools that we use and the methodology to get from analytics and from the data from a regular operations into decisions making on doing the right projects. The key behind this is using data effectively and to get to the decision making. The first, on the left side, you see the RCM, which stands for Reliability Centered Maintenance. This is really maintenance based on the actual requirements for the assets, its effectiveness, condition, and failure modes. It's ensuring that inspections and testing captures information and data that will be useful for decision making. On the second one, which is the ACA, or Asset Condition Assessment. This is really utilizing some of that information about the assets and really analyzing them, the analytics, both operational inspections and tests, and to get overall assessment of asset status. The most common approach typically for utility was to use the age and maybe typical asset life figure as a proxy for when you would need to replace assets. But in reality, this is much more complex, especially when you have a lot of assets that are getting close to end of life. Typically, as you all know, you can have old assets in great condition, and vice versa, you can have young assets in poor condition. So the ACA is a good way of using the information you have to more accurately assess the status of that asset. The third point there is the feeder investment model, which is really about building the justification for expenditures around your asset base, what to do and when to do it, establishing the likelihood of failure and evaluating the risk involved, both from a customer and a utility perspective, and also about getting away from individual equipment or asset decision to a more of a circuit or system level, as well as evaluating different options of intervention. I'm talking about things such as potentially a design change, a new configuration, or even different types of assets. The last one is what we call AIS, or Asset Investment Strategy. This is more about the budget. These are really looking at the shorter-term constraints, the limitation of your budget, and then all the other projects that compete with what I call the sustainment projects. These are the ones, the sustainment projects are the ones we would define through the feeder investment model, the ones that are addressing concerns in the system. The other projects are, of course, capacity growth projects, customer connection related, or potentially relocations of plants, and many of which may be non-discretionary. The AIS allows you with a defensible and repeatable process to prioritize your portfolio in terms of value delivered, so you will know which projects are in and which are out. One of the things important when you look at the roadmap with those different tools, it is really about what's driving that from an asset management perspective and what you're looking at. And utilizing the information out from regular operations and making it better, and also analyzing it and evaluating condition, and then assessing risk that you have. And this is in many ways addressed by the PAS 55 standard, which is a British standard about asset management that really focuses on what you need to have for any industry that its main business is assets. So you see there on the left side that bullet bullseye thing. The physical assets is just one aspect of it. You need to build around it in terms of human interface, the motivation, communication to the people that are working in the field or in the offices, and also to customers. Roles and responsibilities, define them, making sure you have knowledge transfer, experience, and the leadership to get to places. Also, financially, you need to evaluate life cycle costs, capital investment criteria, operating costs, value of assets, and performance. Intangibly, there's also things such as reputation, image, morale, constraints, or social impacts. And last but not least, it is the information assets, which is understanding what the condition of your assets are, how they're performing, what activities are going on, what opportunities you have. And overall, total business, it's really the vital context of this, having objectives, policies, processes, working with the regulations and performance requirements to be able to tie this all together. And one next aspect, I talked about the information assets, and we talked a little bit about the ACA, and I really want to go a little bit into how we put that together. And it's in many ways very similar as Bruno explained for Hydro One. It's really about looking at all the different things that come in, whether it's inspection data from the field, whether it's even age information you have on the asset, or it could be testing that you do. Of course, that depends on what kind of asset it is. A wood pole is very different than, for instance, a transformer, of course. But what you do is you try to look at all the different things that can actually bring that asset to end of life and establish what we call degradation factors and weight them and put them together so we can formulate a health index. So this takes both. You need to have subject matter experts that understand the root cause behind failures of those assets and how you can actually measure that and how you could be judging where that asset is in terms of life. And then you cannot forget that you, of course, need to get that information, and it needs to be validated. It needs to be accurate, and people need to know how they capture it. And that could be through the regular maintenance processes. Feeder patrols in some cases, you do specific patrols to go and get information if it's missing, or also what you really try to is get as much away from subjective information to objective, that is by having actual tests that really measure something. This slide a little bit explains the feeder investment model and a little bit how you could utilize all that different data, both directly from the asset register, the inspection data you have, the ACA that you actually have already calculated, potentially reliability information, which will tell you when something happens, what the impact is, how long the outage is, and so on. And by putting those together, you could start assessing, once you have good information, what the likelihood of a failure is and what the impact is. And when you have those two, and you can start quantifying what the cost of risk is and comparing that to the investment or the intervention cost of either replacing or fixing the asset or the system. And that could lead you to finding out what the optimal intervention time would be for that replacement. And in theory, what we see here, we see a map of the city of Toronto, just in a schematic. You could, by doing this, especially when you start combining different assets and looking at it from a circuit perspective, you could start seeing where the hotspots are in your system, where you need to really focus on to improve reliability or improve the service that you're providing. And you could identify those and identify projects to address them. As you can see in this one, this is where we want to be. We're not there even close yet. We want to be like this, that we address, we find those hotspots, we have the right projects, we do the right design, and we get our reliability to a new level. I wanted to talk a little bit about, because what we're always trying to do is get away from just doing inspections on paper-based and so on, getting the information, because that's one of the things, when you build up tools that help you make decisions, you start seeing very clearly how important the data is, and that's what we have been finding. What we're really trying to look at is other ways. We've gone into mobility, which means really having handhelds out there when people are capturing data just to get more accuracy. and be able to more validate the data that's being, or the information. And I always call it in the beginning, it's data. It's not information until you've actually verified it and are able to use it for something. One of the things also we're constantly looking at is getting more monitoring out into the system, so we actually get real data. One of the things we've done is actually putting distribution transformer monitors on our existing pole-mounted or pad-mounted or even submersible transformers. And this is really to help us measure the load on them, and in some cases even some other things around. For instance, in the submersible transformers, we would like to measure the water level so we get an alarm if they're filling up, the voltage is filling up with water. Another thing is temperature. That's what we would like to do. We've installed a few thousands of those in our system, and you can see actually the graphic up there. It actually is showing a location and the actual load on some of these transformers. And load, this can actually be helpful in many ways. It can be helpful, for instance, which we've already seen, is identifying transformers that were way overloaded and were just waiting to fail. We were able to go out there and replace them proactively. And also, as everybody or people know, the higher the loading of a transformer there is, the shorter its lifespan is. So we can actually start looking at how the load profile of that transformer is and try to estimate what its real condition is, irrespective of age. There's more that you could do. You could be starting looking at more specifically about reliability. You could be looking at heat maps, which transformers have had reliability problems, and look at momentaries more accurately, and have perhaps more focused work on these assets. And this is one of the things we're looking at is, and I think Bruno mentioned that just before also, is trying to get that information into the field. So not just back here for analytics for us to make a better decision in the future, but it's also getting that information so that we help with the day-to-day operations. And also being able to see something that could potentially come into our control room and identify that there's a risk out in the system that we otherwise would not have seen. So this is kind of an example of that.
Thanks, Thor. This is Jesse. Let me jump in because we do have a couple of questions. One question is, what organizations in Toronto Hydro, and then I'll ask Bruno the same question for Hydro One, but which organizations are behind your asset management work? They wanted to specifically know if the CIO's office was involved. And I'd like you to extend that too and tell me, how has this changed your relationship with the executives and their relationship with their strategic planning, this ability to have this objective information? Does it change their planning? Does it change your ability to influence what's done from where you sit? So how is your group constructed? What parts of the organization are part, and how has it changed the relationship to the executive boardroom?